Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're here with the fourth episode of our third season and I will be discussing the first race of the season, the long-awaited start of the Cyclocross season, the Ethias Cross in Lokeren. And with me here to do that is Issam.
Hey everybody.
So the Ethias Cross in Lokeren, the men's race is the first race we'll talk about, and later on the women's race will give you some results of youth and German races, and finally we'll have a short touch upon the European Championships on the road in Trento. So to begin with the men's race in Lokeren, it was Eli Iserbyt who had the fastest start, but Vincent Baestaans quickly took over and basically paced together with Iserbyt for the first 2-3 laps. But then Baestaans, he blew up, kind of what we saw from Quinten Hermans basically last season, the entire first 2 months of it that season. But Baestaans blew up, he disappeared, Iserbyt then attacked. But from there on, Iserbyt, it basically looked like he was on a cruise, but I doubt he was. But he comfortably went on to win that race. Behind him there was a somewhat exciting battle for second. It was Lars van Haar who came basically forward with Jens Adams and Laurens Zweek. He joined Michael Vanthourenhout, who basically was on the podium positions the entire race. In the beginning with Daan Soete, but Daan Soete also blew up. So then we had a group of 4 riders fighting for second and third, but Van Haar and Vanthourenhout really were the strongest there. They got the gap, and Van Haar ultimately beating Vanthourenhout in the last lap for second, meaning Vanthourenhout ended third. Eli Iserbyt getting off to a very good start again to his season. Issam, I don't think we're surprised, it's the third year he does this, but it looked like he was cruising towards that win. But let's face it, he eventually did struggle. It was a very tough race.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard race for him. I mean, it isn't a surprise to see Iserbyt dominating a race at the beginning of the season, but it definitely cost him some energy, and it wasn't a smooth victory for sure. But he was going very well. He looked very good. He looked sharp. He looked. I think he had an edge on everybody, and that's obviously shown in the results. But it was overall just a very good result, and great to see the European champion being up there.
Yeah, it looked like he was always comfortably in the lead, and I think he was comfortable in the lead, but it was a first race, it was warm, it's a pretty tough parcours with a lot of corners where you need to accelerate lap after lap, and I think it eventually just took his toll, and it meant everyone was tired. You could see a couple of riders falling back, more on that later, but Van Haar in second, that's maybe a bit more of a surprise.
It definitely is. I mean, Van der Haar sometimes has like a bad season opener. Sometimes can actually be very good in a season opener. I think if I recall correctly, won once the Gerardsbergen Cross, which is like it's a very early cross in September. I think it was 2018 or something. But I didn't expect him to be in the top 3, and for him to be up there, I think that is mentally a very good result, and I think he's gonna take a lot from that. And he's even in his interview he was like, I don't really care if I was gonna be today second or fourth or whatever. I just want to feel very good, and I want to feel that the legs are okay, and I think he felt that he was in a good shape. So just amazing to see that he was up there.
Yeah, his season openers are always a bit, well, unpredictable. He, of course, won there in Gerardsberg, as you said, but he's also finished outside of the top 10 a couple of times. This time he ultimately grabbed that second place, and I think it was also down to his experience. You could see riders like, of course, I just mentioned them, Daan Soete and Vincent Baestaans, they blew up and fell back. Van der Haar did it the opposite way. He was at the back end of the top 10 in the beginning and then just overtook rider after rider and eventually ended second. About Michael Vanthourenhout in third, what do you make of his race?
Again, a solid performance. It's not outstanding, but we didn't really expect this from Vanthourenhout in the first race, or at least in the first part of the season. So I think he showed himself a lot in the race. A couple of times he was behind Iserbyt alone. He tried to bridge the gap. He tried to force something. In the end, I think that cost him second. But definitely a strong result for Vanthourenhout, and I think he's gonna look positive after this race about his result today, and he's looking positive into the future for sure.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. I already said Iserbyt won in front of Van der Haar and Vanthourenhout. Zweek in fourth, really a anonymous race from him. Yes, he was in that group fighting for the podium, but you never really thought he would have a shot there. Then fifth, Jens Adams, solid race by him. Sixth, Dan Soete, he already blew up. Just told you that. Toon Aert seventh, Vincent Bastaans eighth after a fast start. Anton Ferdinand the ninth, and Toon van der Bos 10th. So basically, Toon Aert here in seventh place is a bit of a disappointing season start for him. What do you make out of this? Is this worrying for his season?
Depends. If he didn't really make a goal out of it to be very good in the beginning of the season, I don't think he's going to be worrying too much because he knows that that is not his goal and he doesn't care too much about this race. But if he really trained to be good right now, I would worry a little bit because, in my opinion, I didn't see any positive notes from the race. There was not the moment where I was like, oh, well, he kind of showed there that he had some, it's an overall problem in a way for Arts, if it is a problem. So, we will see in the coming races, and especially we will see later on as well what his goals are, and then we can focus a little bit more on that. But I think, obviously, he's not going to be too happy about his result today.
Toon Aert struggling in first races of the season isn't something strange. Last year he did end second, but that was basically an outlier. He usually does finish around 4th to 7th place, where he was today. And last year he did get second, but he was almost a minute down on Iserbyt. But don't forget, after that, the week after that, he was there, he won comfortably, and basically that went on for a couple of weeks. And he did say he was peaking towards those races there in the USA, and then from there hopes to be consistent for the rest of the season. Well, if he wants to be good there, it isn't bad to have a bit of a dip now, because it's in 4 or 5 weeks time, in 5 weeks to be precise. So now you still want to be doing some big training. You probably did a week of big training. This is just an Ethias Cross. Next week is just an Ethias Cross. The week after it's just an Ethias Cross. I mean, it's really no harm if you don't get good results there, as long as you for yourself can feel that there is a bit of improvement there. You're getting into a rhythm, and I think for Toon Aert that could definitely be the case. And if I was Toon Aert, I wouldn't be worried. I mean, it's the first race of the season. It was warm. It was a tough course. You need to get into a rhythm. As long as you're good in Gieten, I think you should be fine. Well, is there any other names in or just outside the top 10 you would like to talk about, Issam?
Well, I think we can talk about the under 23 guys, maybe, especially with Ferdinand in ninth and Van der Bos in 10th. I think those two, and then obviously behind that it was also Van der Putten. I think those three, and especially Ferdinand, was very strong overall in the beginning of the race. Then he struggled a little bit at the end, towards the ends, especially Van der Bos and Van der Putten were a little bit more in that position. But I think those three, we were expecting them maybe a little bit too high in a way, but still very good performances from them, and definitely one of those guys is gonna perform very well in one of those races that are coming up.
Yeah, definitely. You could see those under 23 riders ending at the back end of the top 10. You could see they were more towards the front in the earlier phase of the race. This is either down to unexperiencedness that they have, that they don't know, or they basically overestimate themselves in the beginning of the race, or it's just the youth that they don't have the volume to be able to ride for an hour because they're used to riding 50 minutes as under 23 riders. And you just mentioned three names, but if you look a bit further, in 12th place, another under 23 rider, Wietse Meeuwse. For Wietse Meeuwse, in my opinion, it's about time to really show the talent he has, because in 2018-2019 season, he came second at the World Championships for the juniors. But after that, I think he got injured the season after that, and last year was, of course, the COVID season in which he didn't get great results either. But today, with the 12th place, in my opinion, he shows that the talent is definitely in him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's for Wietse. Obviously, he has to show some promise, but I don't really feel like he's also a year younger than those two guys, than the three guys. He's only 20 years old at the moment, so I think for him, he should take it very easy, and he shouldn't. It's we expect a lot from these youngsters from a very young age, because that is kind of the pattern and the way it's going at the moment. But some youngsters really need to have some time to grow in. But it's definitely a good sign that he is up there with those three. Obviously, there's a bit of a gap between them, but it's still a promising result, and we will just see in the season how it will go for him.
Let's then talk about the women's race, because the women's race was a bit more interesting. There we saw a horrendous start from the both Igo Krelan girls, Manon Bakker and Yara Kastelein. They had shockers of a start, meaning they were somewhere around 20th place going into the field. This meant that early on in the race, Van Empel was opening a gap, but Aniek van Alphen and Inger van Heijden closed that. Betsema slightly caught off guard at the start, but she managed to close that gap, so meaning we had those 4 leaders for almost the entire race. Van Empel was last of those 4, slightly distanced a couple of times, but eventually she came back when Betsema made a bike change. Betsema had some kind of issue with her bike and she was distanced. Van Empel took the lead, basically slowed down so Betsema could come back. But that was very fortunate because Inger van der Heijden was in her wheel. She made a mistake, crashed, held up the rest. Inger van der Heijden, hampered by that crash, then got distanced. Van Alphen closed the gap with Betsema in the wheel. 3 leaders going into the final lap. In that final lap, Betsema made a mistake, so it looked to be like Van Alphen and Van Empel would fight it out. But Van Empel took the lead and then dropped the pace so Betsema could come back. Then after that, it was Van Alphen who thought, I should probably take the lead if I want to win. Very smart by her. She attacked, but ultimately that attack came just short. She did drop Van Empel, but then it was Betsema who took the lead and dropped the pace so Van Empel could back. Well, the team game was played very well because after that we were going into a narrow section. Betsema was leading. Van Empel dive bombed Van Alphen, meaning Van Empel let a small gap fall. Easy win for Betsema following that. Van Empel second and Van Alphen third. Well, I already said it in the summary, Issam. This was really a good team play by Paul Sauzen.
Yeah, it was. I doubt if she needed it in a way, but it was definitely well played, and especially for Van Empel, who seemed to struggle all over the race in a way, that she was able to in the end play a role for Betsema. I think both of them, but especially Betsema, is now really confident going into the rest of the season that she knows she has a team player that is willing to help her if she feels that the other one is a bit stronger. So I think overall, I think both Pauwels Sauzer girls are going to be very happy and are going to be looking forward to the rest of the season.
Well, Denise Betsema, she looked good today, but she didn't look fully concentrated, and personally I think that was down to a lack of rhythm. I mean, you could see her making quite some mistakes, which she usually doesn't, especially that one in the last lap, but before that she also made quite some mistakes, and I think that was it just shows that you need time to really get into a rhythm, and for some riders that goes easier than for others.
Yeah, I agree, but it's the first race of the season. For most of them, some even didn't really train too much in the field. So for some, it's like from the road straight onto the field. So I think she made some mistakes. She normally makes sometimes some mistakes. She had a mechanical as well. It's the first race of the season, so for making mistakes it's better you make the mistakes now than you're gonna make them in the Super Prestige or in the X2 Badkamer Trophy or something. So it's a bit of the charm of such a race that you see those mistakes being made, and that the temperature is so high and everything. So makes it fun and makes it very nice to watch.
About that mechanical, maybe we shouldn't look into it too much, but we did see 2 bike changes today, and both were from Paul Sauzen bingo riders. I forgot to mention at the men's race, Laurens Sveek had a bike change because he had a broken shifter. Betsema had a bike change because her cable that goes from her shifter to her brake was broken. So basically she was riding with only her front brake. I personally think that if we see this happen in the future races next week and the week after, then we should start asking questions. But this is maybe the only thing that didn't look good at Paul Sauzen bingo.
The mechanics that are working there are not really happy with it, and also the guys that are responsible for all the material and the sponsors of the bike and stuff, I don't think they feel very happy with what happened today. Obviously not a big race, and like you said, we shouldn't be looking too much into it, but it says something, and maybe something we can focus on for a couple of races to come to see if this is a pattern we're gonna see with the mechanics, with the mechanical failures for the Pauwels Sauzen team, or it's just gonna be a one-off. We'll see.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. We had the top 3 of Betsema, Van Empel, Van Alphen. Just outside that, the recovery from Yara Kastelein after her bad start. Inger van der Heijden finishing 5th after her crash. 6th, Helene Clauzel. 7th, Anna Kay. 8th, Alicia Frank. 9th, Manon Bakker. And 10th, Maud Kapteins. Would like to speak briefly about Helene Clauzel. I think that was a pretty good race by her to end 6th.
I think so too. I mean, this is we named her in the preview. We were, or at least you guys did. I wasn't there with the preview, but you expect a little bit from her. But this is definitely a very good result to be in the top 10, and it's better that she's now in the top 10. So we have also some other flags only than the Dutch flags at the moment in the top 10.
Certainly also with Anna Kay in 7th, I think it was a decent ride by her. She usually needs a bit of time to get into her rhythm. Then Frank in 8th, also a good performance by her.
Yeah, I agree. I think Frank already last year made some steps. It were not the biggest steps, but you could see in some races that she was improving bit by bit. I think that we're gonna see a bit of the same this season. I think that she improved in a positive way, and that she's gonna be fighting a little bit more for those top tens also in the next coming races in the season.
I would like to make a short note about Maud Kapteins and Sophie de Boer, both riders who have been struggling the past few years. We saw them riding in the top 10 for quite some while, eventually falling back a bit. Kapteins 10th, de Boer 15th. Good to see them back. These are some older riders. I mean, Kapteins is 27, but de Boer is 31. The younger riders, on the other hand, if you look at the under 23s, we saw Van Empel ending 2nd, 13th place for Durafou. We mentioned her in the season preview podcast. Strong ride by her. And then in 16th, first year's under 23, Femke Gort ending 16th there. Pretty good performance by her. She has been racing last weekend in some non-UCI cyclocross races, winning one and ending 2nd in the other. She got hit by a car this week on training, and then ending 16th here is very good. And she has never been the biggest talent throughout the youth categories, but this is a promising result in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely not a bad result, you know. So especially for somebody that is now 17, 18, I think. It's definitely a strong result, and maybe someone to keep an eye on for not this season, but definitely for maybe the under 23 races or for next season.
We will definitely be keeping an eye out on her as well as we do with all the other talent. The junior and newcomer races were finally back in Lokeren just as the spectators. The top 3 of the juniors race was Jordi Koorsus, first year junior, winning the race in front of Niels Keulemans and Toon van den Berg. I will also be giving you the top 3 of another C2 race, the 4 Bikes Festival cyclocross race in Lützelbach in Germany. Marcel Meijzer won the men's race in front of Thijs Aerts and Timon Ruek. These riders collecting some very important UCI points. And in the women's race, it was another German win. It was Judith Kral who won in front of Juliette Tromby and Kiona Krabbe, all 20 years old. We cannot end this podcast without briefly talking about what happened today on the road. In Trento, the European Championships under 23 road race were held, and Thibau Nys won. The rider who wasn't selected for the European or World Championships under 23 this year did make the selection for the road race, and he won, and he did it in style. What a ride by him.
Yeah, I think there was an impressive race from him. Obviously, closing that gap, that was very vital to be in the front group. And then, very hectic sprint as well in the last corner. It didn't really look well there within between two guys going into that corner. I was, a bit worried about that, but the sprint then and beating the likes of Baroncini and Ayuso is, incredible. Really didn't really expect it. You were talking about it, to be honest, that he might have a chance to win the under 23 European Championships on the road, but that he actually realizing it's incredible.
Yeah, I did think he was always going to have a chance, but that he would do it in this style. The parcours was a bit more difficult than what I expected from it. Thibau Nys also saying that the parcours at the World Championships in 2 weeks is even better for him. I think for the World Championships it will be difficult because now, of course, this is his first road race outside of Belgium, so Baroncini, and especially Ayuso. Ayuso probably doesn't even know who Thibau Nys is. Well, he knows now. Ayuso got mugged today. Spain riding all day for Ayuso, and then Ayuso not being able to drop them, whilst being arguably the biggest talent according to some after Remco Evenepoel. Well, he got clapped by Thibau Nys today, who is a cyclocross rider who has only ridden club races in Belgium this summer. So it's very impressive what he's done, and I think he really benefited from the fact that the others didn't really know who he was and how fast he was, and that will be different now going into the World Championships in Leuven. But if he rides like this, the climbs are also shorter there. I don't see why Thibau Nys shouldn't be among the favorites to win that World Championship there.
Yeah, definitely after this result. And he knows the parkour very well. He trains there sometimes, so I think he has his goals set on their World Championships, and I give him a lot of chances there that he's gonna be able to also win the World Championships. But now he's gonna be a favorite there. Now he needs to control the race. Now they're all gonna look at him, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he deals with the pressure, how he deals with really controlling a race with the Belgium team, which is a quite strong team. But we will see, and if he's able to become also world champion, that's gonna be something else.
Yeah, I think becoming world champion will be very difficult. I think the Dutch also have a very strong team going there, but Belgium also have a strong team, so it could be in for a very classic Netherlands v Belgium cyclocross style battle. But there will definitely be some other riders who we certainly should keep in the back of our heads for that race, but that's in 2 weeks' time. Nys very surprised himself. He was crying. He said, normally I would be starting my cyclocross season today. I never thought I would be able to do something like this. And about the cyclocross season, we know he will be starting in Gieten and then ride the World Cups in the USA with the pros. What do you expect him to do in the cyclocross season? I know it's a bit early, but does this tell you anything about his level for the cyclocross season?
It tells me he made a step. He made a step in a good direction, but to be here right now, I'm gonna say like, oh yeah, he's gonna be in the top 5 now. He's gonna be fighting. No, I want to see it with my own eyes what he's gonna do. I think that he's gonna be, a top 10 guy. I think he's gonna be maybe on the level of Van de Putte, Van de Bos, a little bit like that, and maybe a little bit better. But I'm not gonna be here shouting that he's gonna be on the podium every race or something. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's gonna win one of those elite races. And I'm not talking about the classified races, but I think in Ethias, if he's going to be there in one of those races, who knows, maybe.
Yeah, I think he will be very good this cyclocross season, certainly in the top 10, or at least the back end of the top 10 quite a few times. Will he be able to compete for the win? Well, in my opinion, it's just very hard to say. I don't expect that in Gieten. I don't expect that in those World Cups in the USA. But hey, I'll let him surprise me as he's done so many times, including today. Well, I think we've had it then for this episode of the Cyclocross Social podcast. Issam, thank you for joining me.
No worries. Thank you for having me, man.
Next week we'll be back with the Ethias Cross in Beringen. No preview, just a post-race show. See you guys then. Goodbye.